Alrighty, welcome to another episode of the One Last Cast podcast. My name is Jonathan, and as always, we have Merriel Solesky here. Say hi, Merriel.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
It's uh, it's been weird weather just because we got spring for a little bit, and then all of a sudden it turned winter again for a brief moment. Um, how's it over? How's it been over in Corpus? Because I know you've been over there for a while.
Corpus, I actually haven't been there in about 2 weeks. But when I've been down there, it's been very windy.
Hmm.
Um, but, still a ton of trout down there. Um, haven't done a lot of kayaking, been just walking up, catching trout, kind of just getting my fix and work some jetties that I know of. Was on vacation last week in Tennessee, caught some rainbow trout. Bass, stock ponds bass, and rainbow trout is pretty much in Tennessee what we're catching.
Hey, at least you've been getting your line wet, and hey, walk-in spots. Those are a dime a dozen nowadays. So
Oh man, not in Corpus, man. This is the same spots I've been fishing since I was a kid. First of
really,
all, I'd like to say congratulations, Jonathan, for that first place win with you and Jay Lee on that tournament. A lot of big swingers on that tournament, and y'all come out and knock out first place. Awesome job. I guess I would love to hear the story behind it. I always like the journey more than the prize because the journey always tells a lot about the person and
yeah,
the
yeah,
you
yeah.
know the
We'll get
trials and
into that.
tribulations.
We'll get into that. But before we do, let's give a shout out to our sponsors, Knock and Tail Lures. If you're looking for a great artificial bait, Knock and Tail Lures is the one to go to. It's my favorite. I know that you use it too. And if you're looking for some of those baits, just go to knockandtaillures.com, look them up, and they're just great, awesome baits. And also DSKA, if you're looking for a Facebook group to talk fishing with, all up and down the Texas coast, go to Dirty South Kayak Anglers, look that up on Facebook, and you'll have a great group of guys and gals to join and talk to. Also, 4A Printing, they do our custom merch, such as this awesome throwback logo buff that they made for us. If you're looking for towels, buffs, anything printing, such as like shirts or anything like that, Aaron there will hook you up. So search up 4A Printing on Facebook and place your order. Also, could not do this without Merrill's wife, Brittany Solesky. If you're looking for real estate here in Houston, either commercial or residential, give her a call at 281-740-0498 or reach her at Brittany, that's BRITNEY, at grindstonereg.com. So, just as Merrill alluded to a couple weeks ago, I think we we had the a rescheduled Saltwater Survival Series Heroes on the Water benefit tournament. It was supposed to be, I think, in December, but something came up and it got rescheduled to the beginning of March. And Jay, I was talking to Jay, and he's like, "Let's do it." Unfortunately for me, I just started a new job. I haven't been fishing in forever, and I was like, I don't know where the reds are. It was a 2 redfish tournament. Bring in 2 reds, your biggest ones. The slot is 2028 here in Texas, and I was like, I don't know where they're at. I'm going to kind of have to lean heavily into you to kind of figure it out. And he's like, no problem. I'll pre-fish, and we came up with the game plan, and it worked out. Yeah, it was basically it just worked out. One of the big things that helped our cause was a front was rolling through that day. The day before, nice balmy spring weather. We're looking at probably mid 80s. Like little to no wind, and then tournament day, and of course, always tournament day. Always something new comes up. They went from that to rough right around like 50. But I think with the wind chill, it was a little bit colder just because it was blowing like 20, 30 miles an hour from the north. Um, so it was just a tough day, like a lot of paddling to keep in place. And we were just at at the right place at the right time. Our goal was to hit that a drain right when that front was going through, because we figured all those redfish in the back of that pocket that we were fishing, it was just coming out. All that water's coming out, and it was coming out. Um, and those redfish, they were just stacked up, like literally. Uh, we launched, and I was a little bit behind Jay, and he turned around, and he was like, "Man, they're right there. Just listen." And I could hardly hear anything because it was so windy, but every so often you just hear that pop and that movement of water just as redfish just crush bait, and all of them they're literally in like inches of water because they're like straight up against the bank where the current was coming out, and they were just up against that water, up against that shallow area. Um, and every so often you can just see them just bust out, and there are some big ones too. Um,
Yeah,
so
that's not, man. When you man, like so, like when you describe that, there's like so many places that come in my mind. Like so where that is possible. So I mean, were you guys like heading for protection from the wind with the knowing that the big winds are coming, the big northern wind was coming, or are you guys like, let me just put myself in big wind's way, knowing that this is going to be the outcome at this time? So just presetting your, because you can't really. Well, I shouldn't say that because typically when storms happens, some people like to sit in places and just know exactly what's going to happen. So sometimes a big change in the weather helps out a lot for some anglers because they know exactly what to do during these big changes, like a whole bunch of rain or a big storm coming. So, or were you guys just in a protected area?
no, so we actually planned ahead, and we knew number one, Jay's been was monitoring the tides for like the last few days before tournament, and we knew that it was actually lined up perfectly, because the drain that we're looking at on a low tide, there wouldn't have been any water coming out of it, even with the front coming through. We were basically at peak high tide, and we had that water flushing out most of the day. Um, and it was wind to our backs, so it actually helped us casting into it. The only issue was that even though we're casting into it, it was at a slight cross. So it's oh yeah, Jay's trying to see, like, oh, you're trying to get our spot.
I got a funny story about Jay Lee. Jay Lee's been kayak fishing before it was actually what it is today. Before it was a cool thing, and we didn't know each other, but there's very few of us that actually fished on a kayak back then. We didn't have all these. What we're going to talk about is all these fancy little rod holders. We would make shift of what we had as for rod holders, like PVC pipes, milk crates that we would screw PVC pipes to and holes to hold them. And, we didn't have a lot of, this is before YouTube was even like a big thing and all that. So we were out there when people used to laugh at us being on a piece of plastic out there in this certain area we fish a lot of. Um, so yeah, Jay Lee's been doing this for a very, very long time. So I really doubt that it was luck, Jay Lee. But anyways, Jay Lee's been out there fishing way before it was a cool thing in a kayak.
Yeah,
But
and
yeah, I'm not trying to potluck you guys. It's just
no,
my
no, no.
mind. It's just I get so excited about these situations and stuff
Oh
like
yeah,
that. And
it was
and
it
I
was
go
it
ahead,
was
go ahead.
no, it was great because it was also frustrating because we got there super early. First cast is at 6 o'clock, and this was around like we were at our spot around like 5:15 ish. And they're already busting, and like Jay was chomping at the bit to like, I want to make a cast, I want to make a cast. But we once that 6 o'clock hit, we made our first cast, and it wasn't long for us to hook up, and it was literally like he made us the drain is literally probably it's literally the size of my little table here. It's about 4 or 5 foot across. That's it. It's a very
Okay,
small
I know where
drain.
you guys were at now. That's
Uh,
it. That's all you had to tell me.
yeah, it's like
I know
four or five.
exactly where you were at. No, it's kidding.
It's four or
Uh,
5 foot across, and on that water is just gushing out. But if you make those, um, since it's so small and it was in the dark still because the sun hadn't risen yet, it was very difficult to time and get that timing right with the wind and everything. Um, and you know, I there's probably still a couple plastics in the tree up against the bank because we just couldn't make that. But once you got it just right, that first cast we got it just right. Jay hooked up. And
Nice.
it was like 23, 24, but your first two fish are always the hardest ones to get.
Yes.
So and then I finally got it down. We had to hop out of our kayaks just because it was just so windy. It was blowing, the way that we were positioned just kept blowing us around. So we hopped out of our kayak so we could just be in one spot, and we kept making those casts. Finally, I got one right when it hit, set the hook, got it, and got a good one.
Yeah.
And oh yeah, Jay's saying he had to make me this time guy because he didn't trust myself to prematurely make a cast. Yeah, I was like on the clock the entire time. But yeah, once you got those casts right, it was great. And then of course, since the drain is so small, when you catch one fish, it kind of spooks the rest, and you kind of have to wait a little bit, and then they'll come back. And it came back.
You want to
So
try the double cast? You ever
it
done
was
that?
it's too small of an area for us to do double casts. And also like a couple times we got our lines crossed, just
Mm-hmm.
because like we were trying to do that double cast, we couldn't do it.
Ah, I
Um,
got you.
yeah, it was just that water was just coming out too much, and it was just too many variables for us to account for. Couldn't see, so and eventually, we got our two. We had two solid. I say solid. They're slot redfish.
Right.
And it just went downhill for Jay from here. Sorry, Jay, I have to tell the story. Um, but
It happens to the best of us. It really
from
does.
from that point on, from that point where after we had our two redfish, Jay came on fire, and like from that until the end of the tournament, hooked like 15 other redfish,
Oh, nice.
and only brought in one more. Um,
Oh, that would make that actually happened to you, didn't that, Jonathan? And you
yeah,
just
it has.
quit.
I
So
quit.
yeah, so Jonathan would have easily took first place with a 15-inch trout. He just needed one more, and he just brought one big old hog in on a tournament we were fishing. And he literally came into the weigh-in early, and I was like, you still got time, right? You only brought in one fish, and I think what is it, three fish, right? It was three
Yeah,
trout.
it was a three trout stringer, so you can bring in. So
So you had the same situation where you just
yeah,
kept hooking them, bringing them to the kayak, and then they get off and they kept missing. And you just like, you know what? I had enough. That's
yeah.
what probably
Well,
happened.
it's even worse for Jay because he actually, between that point, he strung probably 4 or 5 other redfish,
Mm,
and so we were close enough to our where we launched from that we could put the redfish in a cooler with our live well.
hmm
And he went back one time with with I think 3 of them
hmm
to figure out which ones are we gonna, or 2 of them which one are we gonna keep. And he was at the launch, and I saw him like pick up the stringer, and like the bottom fell out, and those 2 fish just went into right into the water.
Oh,
And they're
oh,
definitely, both of them were upgrades.
and they were
I don't know.
swimmers too, right? They
Oh
swam
yeah,
right off.
they swam right out, and
Jeez.
a couple of them, lost at the kayak. So yeah,
Ah,
but
yeah,
but
man. But I mean, y'all still pulled off first place though.
yep. So
So
we came in. We're like, we're done. We got our 2. Um,
I also want to talk about another tournament that One Last Cast podcast was sponsoring fourth place. So these are the 956 anglers. Give those guys a big shout out. They were out there grinding. It was a big group of them. I don't know what the total count was, but I was watching their tournament, and these guys were hustling. They had certain rules. They could catch so many trout and redfish. And Tommy, he came out of nowhere, squeezed out first. He didn't come out of nowhere, but I think Colorado Red was in the lead, and then this guy just came up, and then it was a close one. Colorado Red had 204 points, or 203 points. Tommy had 204 points, and then Marcos, he was staying in the game, not giving it up, keep pushing. I love watching tournaments like that. Yeah, that was a really good tournament to watch. I like those really long tournaments because then you could really see kind of like what the Royale used to be, the DSK Royale. So you get to really see what individuals catch and then how much grind they put into it. But we're going to go ahead and since fourth place didn't get any money, I'm going to send you a reel from Shimano to Homer Ramirez. So just reach out to us, Homer, and we got you a Shimano reel from One Last Cast podcast, and we enjoyed the show, man. And that's what it's all about, man. Getting you guys out there fishing, and it was a big group of you guys out there. Nobody likes to hear the crying, the whining. Just get out there, grind it out, and push forward. And man, it was an awesome show. It was an awesome performance. Congratulations to you guys that placed in the top three and fourth place. Me and Jonathan, we felt the fourth place sting one too many times. So we like to give you a prize. So reach out to us, Homer, and we'll get you a reel. And I feel like we probably give another prize for one of our listeners today for it being our 50th or something.
You're ruining my flow of the show here. I have all my notes all written out.
I am so sorry. The gun. Also, another one of my favorite players was Lucas Sanchez, Roland Sanchez. I love watching those guys, and also David Morissette. Those are one of my top people that I liked watching in that tournament. Y'all did an awesome job. Y'all did a great job, and I just let you know there's some other people up here in Houston watching y'all guys down there. I think it was like a Corpus Christi guys and the 956 guys going at it, and it was pretty cool. Pretty cool to watch. Sorry about that, Jonathan. It's still the show for a little bit. I just want to give a shout out to those guys.
I do want to mention that when Merrill's mentioning fourth place and we know the sting, I don't know about Merrill, but I know the sting of fourth place from Merrill all the time, at least 2 or 3 times of him knocking me out of the money. So yeah, speak for yourself, Merrill. So
I'm sorry about that, but I truly am. But we fished a couple of tournaments where we're just like right outside the money. We fished a red tournament where a red and trout mixed bag tournament where our trout were so heavy it was competing with the redfish. They were like, "Man, are those trout?" Like, yeah, they're trout. Anyways, we'll probably go on about this story. Let's go ahead, Jonathan. Let's go to segue to our.
I was just gonna say to kind of finish it off. It was we finally we went in. I actually misread the weigh-in time. I thought the weigh-in was at 6, and so we got there at like 4:30, and I was like, man, I don't want to wait here for that long. Let's just go and grab something to eat. So we left and went to Topwater Grill, just sat down, relaxed, had a meal. And then for some reason it was nagging in my head, and I looked it up. I was like, oh man, the weigh-in is actually at 5. We're gonna miss this thing. So we already weighed in our fish, so we were fine. It was just I wanted to be there for the see what happened. And when we got there, we were a couple people came up and congratulated us. And I'm like, what are you talking about? We just turned in 2 fish that were around 6 pounds. Most of these redfish tournaments you're looking at 14, 15 pounds just to be, sniffing the top. And apparently it was a tough day. There's definitely a lot of people who signed up for it, but we're the only team, I believe, that showed up with 2 fish. So that got us the win. And that's why you go in the weigh-ins. That's why, no matter what happens, you just bring it in, and you never know.
Yeah, that saying I've seen it so many times where like, man, these this 12, 14, even I've even seen where 8 pounds won a tournament. And it's like you just never know until you bring in your fish. I've seen that a lot, and it's a living lesson right there for sure.
Second place was 8 pounds. It was one fish. It was just a big 8 pounder.
Oh, nice.
So.
Yeah. So I know we're like 30 minutes and we probably still talking fishing, but our topic is about accessories on the kayak, and then stuff we're adding on to the kayak. What would you guys use, or what do I use? So what I've actually have a new something new that I use, and that's a motor. So I have a bracket that attaches to the back of my Outback, and then I have a string that goes through the loop that's in the back of the Hobie Outback, and then it goes through one of the little holes, and it goes through that to help. So when I pull this string right by me, so I pull the string towards me to pick it up, so it goes all the way through my kayak and through the front end, and it has a carabiner. The carabiner comes back and clips onto another loop that's already on the kayak. So there's no new holes that's on the Outback the way I have it rigged. So the accessory would be the motor mount, I guess, and then you attach the motor. But as far as that, everything else is jerry rigged. So I just pull that carabiner, clip it, picks up the motor. So then I launch it. And when I launch it, all I do is unclip it, and it just falls down in place, and then it pushes me wherever I need to go. So I'm using the motor because I just kind of like the more of like not straining myself, because sometimes I'm doing 5 miles out, right? And then I'm coming back, that's another 5 miles. So that's 10 miles. But when I'm out 5 miles, I'm still like dancing around a mile, 2 miles, 3 miles, maybe even more. So I am definitely a motor guy now for offshore. Short distance, like 5 mile runs, I won't even hook up the motor. Something more than 5, 6 miles, I'll use the motor. If I'm doing inshore, definitely not putting on the motor. Unless it's a distance to get there, then I'll put on the motor and then just pull it up and then dance around the shallow ends. I just haven't caught myself doing a lot of shallow fishing lately. Um, but that is one of the accessories that would be my top actually accessory would be the motor, the motor mount and the motor for my kayak. What would be your top one, Jonathan?
Um, yeah, it's so my answers changed throughout the years. So originally, whenever you came into the kayak world, your top accessory was going to be rod holders, just because at the time kayaks did not have rod holders. Um, it would You would just have
Or
to add
track
your own,
mounts? Yeah,
or
they didn't
track
have
mount.
track
Yep,
mounts or none of that stuff.
yep,
Yep.
yeah. So they didn't have that, and now of course, like every fishing kayak has at least some rod holders. Usually have a track mount. Um, and I'm gonna have to say the motor too. I mean, I've become a motor guy. I recently I took my rudder to Bixby. I'm sorry, I took my rudder to Fin Factory Tackle in Houston to modify the rudder to accept the Bixby, because they just don't have a mount for that just yet, or they do, but I don't want to pay $200 to for their custom mounting option for the Bixby motor.
Yeah,
Um,
because 200 in gas going there back is just totally different.
Yeah, yeah. So, basically, they did a cutout from the rudder, the rudder blade, and it's the motor attaches to it, and it runs up to the battery, and that works. And I like it. I like it that way because, with the Hobie rudders, they're designed to, if you run up against something, it kicks up, so it doesn't damage the rudder. And in this case now, it's the same thing. It was going to kick up if I hit something. That way, it doesn't damage the motor. Um, and at the same time, I don't lose my pedaling capabilities, so that's great. Um, and Yeah, I just think that the motor is a great accessory. They're pricey. I mean, you can go with a cheap route with a shortened 2x4 that's bolted to the side of your kayak, that so you can side mount a motor, trolling motor, a transom mounted trolling motor, and a heavy duty battery. You can go get a motor for like that, probably found like $400. Um, which I know is not cheap, but it's not, you know,
It's not
1,500.
yeah,
It's not,
1,000 bucks
yeah,
plus battery, you
yeah,
know?
exactly. So, um, yeah, so I think that would be one of my top things, and the next would be the fish finder. just because I like seeing where I'm at.
Yeah, so probably need some help from you guys. What's y'all's favorite fish finder to use? Because I definitely want to get one, or depth finder, whatever you want to call it. But I would definitely like a side image on it. So I know Lawrence is kind of, they were in the lead on technology, and I feel like they're not in the lead anymore with technology. So I'm really up for, any ideas. I would love side imaging, stuff like that. Because fishing deeper waters, now that I'm doing that more, um, imaging is more important versus reading the water on shallower, fishing. So yeah, I'm totally down for the fish finder. I don't have one yet. I had one, but I no longer have one. I didn't utilize it the way I should either. I didn't even have it for long. So yeah, let me know what y'all guys are using, what you like and what you don't like, obviously, so I don't make that same mistake as you guys, or I won't make the same mistake that you guys made that had issues and problems and whatnot.
Yeah.
Um,
So currently I'm running a newer Lowrance 7 TS, the touchscreen with um, the HDS transducer. So it gives me side scan imaging, and it's been good. Just being able to see, one thing I didn't mention in my little story. Which, by the way, if you want to, I wrote a report for my tournament, and it's located at onelastcastpodcast.com. You can find that there. But in my tournament report, I did mention that right after that outflow, the drain was kind of dead. Reason why we chose that area too is that there's some deep water access nearby. Um, and using that side scan imaging, I was able to literally see fish, up against that drop off. And Jay and I pounded that area. I didn't get another redfish bite, after the drain, but he did. He caught a numerous amount of redfish, and I knew they were there. It's just for some reason I couldn't get them to bite. But having that side scan made a big difference.
yeah. So Jay Lee, did he have a fish finder as well, or y'all just used yours? He had
He did.
his.
He has one. It doesn't have side scan, I don't think. But I feel naked without one. You know,
Mm.
I go out there if I'm a couple times I went out there and I haven't charged it. Um, oh, so he set it on side scan, so his does have it. Um, it, I've been out there a couple times when my battery dies, I didn't charge it or whatever. I just feel like I need to be constantly looking at something to orient myself and where I'm at. Um, and it's just having that, okay, I got that bite and I look right away. It's like it's automatic now. I got a bite. And especially when I'm fishing drop offs, I got that bite and it's 4.8 feet of water. Or I also usually have my GPS overlay up. So it would be I'm right here. So I have an idea of what line I'm following to recreate that bite, because usually when you get one bite, if you know what you're doing, you can get it again and again and again. So whenever I don't have that capability, it like I said, I feel kind of naked without it.
Austin asks a good question. Can you put a side scan on an older Outback? There's several ways you can. So one would be well, how old is the Outback, right? But one way they'll fit all of them. They have different mounts that set on the side of your kayak. Especially, they have one that fits in your rod holder. Even the older rod holders in the Outbacks, and then there's an arm that drops down in the water right below your kayak. So you need that side imaging right below your kayak so you can see the side imaging. Obviously, you can't see side imaging if you're in your kayak. Burley Pro makes one that actually goes into those smaller, the older, I guess the older model Outbacks, like the 2015s, 2016s. They have Burley Pro has a mount that actually screws into those, and it's right below, it's like a little ball right below your kayak, and it screws in right there, and your side scan drops right in there, and it's longer than the actual one that fits there for just down imaging. So Burley Pro makes one. You can get the sidearm. They got where you can hook it onto track mounts or several different ways. It drops right on the side of your kayak. I see them where they fold up and they fold down, or one you just clip that goes down. Uh, I think who makes those arms? I think it's Railblazer, right? Makes those
So
arms.
basically, every single kayak accessory, they have a company. They have a model that is a drop the side over the side mount for your transducer. I think Austin's asking about the plate on the bottom. So Austin Burley Pro does make plate adjustable plates for different um transducers, even for the sub 2020, like you're saying, the older models. um they may require some modification, just because this older Outbacks, older Hobies, they're smaller. They're designed for this, the skimmer style transducers are really small, like, they fit in the size of your hand. So you may have to do some modification. The only thing, like the one that I have right now, even with the newer, I have right now I'm running a 2021 Hobie Lynx with the deeper and larger plate on the bottom. It's excuse me. It's designed for the larger transducers, but even the HDS one that I'm having, it's bigger than that. So it's not flush with the hull. It's sitting below the hull, and it's enclosed in the Burley Pro plate for protection. So um yes, you can do it. Just know that you're sacrificing usually it's not going to be flush with your hull. Just because that the way it's designed at the plate is it's just going to be too big for to fit inside that slot. So, um, and yeah, and I know Jay. He's saying that he's marine gooping inside his kayak. And
His whole bottom of his kayak is all marine goop.
yeah,
It's a big old glob of marine goop with
yeah.
the.
I just know that if you do that, so for some of the newer transducers, um, the newer transducers, they're great, but they're very sensitive. I don't know if marine gooping for the newer like the triple shot, I don't think it would work that well with the triple shot. But Jay has the skimmer one, and that will definitely work with goop. Yeah.
Nice.
So
And so another accessory that I think is a must for like offshore is the rod holder that adjusts angles for trolling or setting it back or forward. Um, Hobie makes one, Robles makes one, and I'm talking about the ones where you can it'll go into your rod holders. It fits all kinds of different, Jacksons, Hobies. They also fit into the Old Towns, the Natives, and they'll fit into your rod holders, or you can mount them on a track mount, and you have this like bazooka type thing for your rods, and your rods can either go out left and right, or they can go back, forward, down, and up. And I those are good for me because I put my rods in them and I strap them folding forward, so when I launch off in the surf, my rod tips are either forward, or you could do them backwards, right? As long as they're leashed in and they're secured, and that'll keep from you losing any rods. If you flip, obviously they stay with the kayak. And the reason I fold them forward is because my rod holders are in the back, and I don't have 7 foot rod tips. Or I do have one 7 foot, but it doesn't go past the nose of the kayak. So when it folds right with the length of the kayak, so it's secured with the kayak. So when I'm launching the kayak and I jump in on the kayak, I punch through the waves and through the surf. Nothing happens to my rod tips or rod and reels. Uh, punching through the surf, it just take all that happens is they catch a lot of salt water. And then once I get into a safe area, I'll set them up in the angles that I like to troll. Um, so I think those are a must for offshore. They became very useful, very helpful for me when I'm fishing offshore. So those kind of accessories are a must for me when fishing offshore. Some people like to put the trolling up front, right? so they could see it right when it's going off, and it's right there, right? For me, I don't like anything around my cockpit area. I like to just pedal, and then when I hear my rods, I have a clicker, so when I hear them go off, and then I could turn around and I can, adjust them, and try to reel this one in or whatever, or if I got a double, try to do them both at the same time. No, I'm just kidding. Usually, if you have a double, I try to fight one. The other one gets off. It gets off. I'll tighten the drag, and then I've had it once where I had a double on kingfish, so I brought one in, brought the other one in. So
Yeah, and I think a big thing too is the attachment points for your leashes, because obviously if you go offshore, leash everything down, because it's not a matter of if but when you will flip.
yes,
So I know some of those rod holders. I know some of those rod holders have built-in like attachment points, but if they don't have it, then of course finding those attachment points, you can buy cleats to install into your kayak. Just little little rounded areas where you can just hook them up to. That way that your pricey investment, because offshore gear usually isn't that cheap, isn't going to go down to the bottom of the ocean and be lost forever.
right, yeah, because that'd be a very expensive loss.
Yeah,
Yeah. So for inshore, do you have like other than what is a must for inshore as far as accessories that you would think people would probably really need for inshore fishing or even offshore? Jonathan, if you do any offshore fishing.
I haven't been offshore, and I've said this multiple times. I haven't been offshore in a long time. I'm still waiting for an invite. I'm just kidding. You've invited me multiple times. I just haven't been able to go. Um, um, and inshore, especially here in Galveston, is a stakeout pole. I think that's having that with your anchor trolley is valuable, invaluable. I can't put a price on that. Having that piece of gear is another must for me. Um, it's just because you're not carrying around a 5-pound mushroom weight or an anchor all day, and it doubles that stakeout pole doubles as you can, if you have a long enough one, a push pole. Um, but just going out there and being able to just stake out, and having your kayak secured wherever it is, because most of the time, unless you're fishing in 6 foot plus water, which there's definitely a lot of places in Galveston that have that, but if you're fishing down in Galveston, that's really all you need is a stakeout pole as to anchor up.
Oh,
So
so one thing about offshore fishing, me and Blake Coburn, or Blake Coburn usually hosts a offshore tournament. I'm sorry, offshore for people's
mm,
first time with people that are a little bit more experienced going offshore. So mark your calendars for June 29th on a Saturday, Bob Hall Pier area. Obviously, the pier is not there anymore, but there's several rigs out there that we usually troll around. And last time I think they caught somewhere around 50 something kingfish, something like that. So it's definitely something, if you guys want to go out there, catch some kingfish or an opportunity to catch some kingfish. Obviously, we play by the weather, right? If there's 2 foot swells or above, we won't be going out. If they're two below, we feel like that's safe enough for people to first time to get out there and learn how to fish offshore and what to do, how to gear up. Obviously, you're going to see what other people do, watch what other people do, and try to learn that way, and
and
then take
and Blake,
advice.
yeah, Blake also tries to pair newbies up with people who are more experienced. At least attempts to.
Yes,
So
I know.
that's yeah.
One time we went out, I think it was like we were outnumbered with how many people went, but we did the best we could. Came back in, caught some fish. It was a good time. So even if you guys are like just want to come out and help out and you're experienced, more than welcome. Blake loves it when more than welcome to come help out some of these people trying to learn how to offshore fish, what to do, what not to do, and what helps out, what doesn't help out, and
Yeah,
it's interesting.
since we're on this vein, Austin, he's asked a couple questions in regards to offshore. He's asking, are downriggers needed for offshore? I personally don't think so. But definitely want to get your take on it. And also, is a gaff necessary when you could do that?
Yes, I like to gaff hard heads while I'm trolling, and then I gaff just random fish. No, I'm just kidding. I take a gaff with me, just because I've been in a situation where a shark beated me to the punch, and if I can gaff that fish and bring him on my kayak or on ice as quick as possible versus trying to fight him with my rod and reel and try to get him in a position where he's tired and then he gets close enough to the kayak, grab him by his tail, keep in mind with his teeth, and then swing him on the kayak, which I tried to do last time. Or not last time, what I tried to do one time, and the shark bested me and he ate half of my catch on that day. So yeah, I think a gaff would help. Be careful with that gaff and how sharp it could be. I have a pretty sharp one. What was the other question? Is it gaff? Oh,
It,
outriggers.
outriggers, yep.
Outriggers. Yeah. So outriggers. My first time going offshore was with Victor Cisneros on Tandem Island. And that one had outriggers, but that one also had a big sail. So we sailed, I think it was like 9 miles offshore. Do you need them? I haven't used them. Maybe been on a tandem in an adventure island maybe 5 or 6 times after that. But recently, I haven't used any outriggers. If you feel like it helps you more, you feel more secure with it, bring it. But just keep in mind that's another tool you have on the water that could be in your way, depending on how your outriggers are. So if what I'm saying is if you get a fish hooked on, he could wrap himself around the outriggers, or you can get tangled, or your rod can get in the way when your fish is coming back that way. If you like an example is a hypothetical situation. I go to the rigs and then I punch in a rig and boom, I hit hook onto a cobia. Those cobias fights, like some of those fight really really hard, and those for sure I think would get you wrapped up around those outriggers if you don't know how to control that fish. Sometimes those fish are really really hard to control. So I feel like the less you only take what you need offshore. If you don't need the outriggers, then don't take them. But if you feel like I need them, I feel more secure, safe with them, then bring them. Just know that it could be another obstacle when you're offshore fishing. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah. And I want to jump in there. So, also for the most part, especially here around Texas, if you're going 4 or 5 miles offshore, it's not going to be extremely deep. Outriggers are great to whenever you're trolling to keep them at a certain level, keep your baits at a certain level. Um, Whereas here, you're not going to be. I don't think that's entirely necessary. And at the same time, a lot of people go offshore and they fish rigs. Having those outriggers there are just going to be in your way when you're fishing rigs, just because it's there. It's going to be right behind you. It's something you have to worry about. Um, and they're not useful when you're at the rigs. You're not using. You only use them when you're trolling. So it's just like I said, simple is better. If you're if you're doing a specific thing like trolling and that's all you're going to be doing, yeah, I could see that. That you may need it at that point. But um, personally, I like to keep things flexible and keep options open. So
Yeah. Also, how many rods are we taking offshore? It depends what I'm targeting. So if I'm targeting tarpon, I like one that I could sight cast, and then two that I troll. And then I also have a small one, like if I see some small fish, feeding like what's a Spanish mackerels, stuff like that. I'll tie steel leader line and a bait, and I'll throw it out there, or try to bring them in that way. Um, I usually use coated sometimes so they don't see the silver. Um, but yeah, I'll have one small rod with me for smaller fish, one for side casting the tarpon, and when I see them, and then two trollers. If I'm going to just for kingfish, I'm just gonna have two trollers and maybe a small rod that I could. Sometimes when I'm coming in shore, I might see something I want to throw at. So yeah, that's what I take with me, Austin. So I mean, when you used to go offshore, Jonathan, how about you?
Yeah, it was.
Snap. Same thing with snap. I'm sorry. Same thing with snapper fishing too. It'll be just those two rods, and because I'm just dropping it down. That's mainly how we fish here on the Texas coast. Is we drop down by rigs or structure, and we work it. I know Florida they do something a little different, but same thing. Two rods only. Only time I take an extra rod with me is I'm tarpon fishing.
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
yeah. No, I at the most I've ever taken was 3. It was 2 trolling rods and 1 bottom jigging one. Um, but usually I end up simplifying it as 2 rods. It would be 1 trolling rod, and I didn't want to deal with multiple 2 rod spreads behind me. I know it's very common that people troll 2 rods behind them, but for me, it's simplifying things to where I only have 1 rod trolling and then 1 rod if I got to the rig and I could toss baits and go bottom dropping, do whatever I need to do. That's what I had for my setups, and that worked out for me. So, but I would also say how many amount of rods you're taking offshore. Another reason why I didn't take any more than 3 and I ended up going with 2 is, again, it's you're eventually at some point you will flip, and whenever you flip, your rod leashes could snap, and I did not want to be I did not want to feel the sting of losing like a setup out there. So having the least amount of things that you could lose, that for me was the better. Um, but also at the same time, it's a matter of what you plan on doing. I know a lot of people sometimes they go, not a lot, but I know some people go out there, they'll take multiple rod setups, not only because that's how they want to do it, but they physically they have like a big PA, or they have a bigger kayak that can accommodate you know taking 3, 4, 5 rods. Um, being in the Revo, and now of course the Lynx I have more room, but with the Revo I just didn't have that much room to take that many rods with me. So another thing to take in consideration.
Yeah, size of kayak, right? You got a PA. You can load that thing. It's got 6 rod holders in it, just inside the kayak. The PA 14, I think the PA 12 has four tubes, if I'm not mistaken. That goes inside of it, so that helps out a lot, right? Especially if you're gonna launch a
Yeah.
kayak, you don't even have to worry about anything. Just put those suckers in there, the whole
Yeah.
with the little reel holders, and you're good to go. Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah.
So
One thing I do want to mention in terms of just because in general rigging, um, is understand where you're at in your kayak. So a lot of people, they want to just rig out their kayak, um, for they want 2 rod holders in the front, 2 rod holders in the back, a place to put your a place to put your 360 light, and all these things. And it's good to plan ahead, but also it's good to actually have your kayak and sit in it and figure out exactly where you want things. Because number one, worst thing that you want to happen is that you're on the water and you can't reach your rod holder. um, and that becomes a thing. And the other thing too is that you're trying to adjust your gear on the fly, which all these accessories are, you're gonna take out the T, unscrew the T bolt for your rod holder, and it falls into the water. So now you don't even have a rod holder anymore. Just sit in your kayak and you know, reach forward. I want my rod right here. Okay, if I want my rod needs to be right here, how do I install that right here? So sometimes if that's like it doesn't have your track mount in the front, then you have that little square cutout or rectangular cutout for your rod holder mount. Okay, if it's right there, can I reach it? Okay, I need to scoot it back, or I need to scoot it forward, or can I actually reach behind me and turn and grab that rod? Or okay, it's too close to me, or I can't reach it, I need to bring it forward. So setting it up before you go out there and setting up the way that you like it, is very important.
I think for night fishing, who brought up a good one for night
It was
fishing?
Stacy brought up a
Stacy.
360 light. Yep.
Yes, 360 light. Yes, That's for sure. You need that one. I almost been ran over several times, even with the 360 light. But it's good to have one out there. Uh, it's required, that and a whistle, out there night fishing. What else would you think would be another accessory to have night fishing? I know
Uh,
I know a lot of people don't do night fishing like Jay
you need a
Lee.
head. You need a headlamp. Just get a headlamp,
Oh yes,
a
yes,
good
that's a good
headlamp.
one. Or if
Um,
I don't know Austin, maybe we'll reach out to him and ask him. I know there's a lot of other lights out there as well too.
I mean, I
Um,
I have a fan light and it's still going strong, so
yeah.
I love mine.
Well, I think he's
Um,
asking, are they, is he still selling them or is he still making them? Do you know that or?
I'm not 100% sure, but if you can get a
Yeah.
fan light, it was a good investment for me.
um,
Um, but
yeah, I don't.
definitely
But
a good headlamp, just because when you're out there at night, yeah, your 360 light is going to provide some ambient lighting, but it's not going to, it's very easy to get disoriented of where you're at, especially if you're not going into the canal right away, like you have to cross some amount of water. Um, Also, whenever you have a fish flopping around your cockpit area, having a light just so that you don't, you know, especially if you're using like a suspending twitch bait or something, reaching in and getting hooked. Just we're very visual people. People are visual. We need to see what we're doing. Um, and Jay's saying to bring a laser pointer. I mean, that's not a bad idea, but also like, yeah, that's not a bad idea.
right in the
Um,
eyes, right, Jay Lee?
right.
Get him right in
Yeah.
the eyes. Just like, oh, my
Yeah.
eyes.
But yeah, a good headlamp is invaluable as well. And actually, that reminds me, I need to get another one because mine's crapped out on me. So
Yeah. So, another thing is, so went out fishing recently here in Clear Lake area, and there's these like weird things biting me. They're not quite mosquitoes; they're like flea-like type things, and they tore me up. But the point is that there's a lot of Texas Park and Wildlife out there. People, Texas Park and Wildlife officers out there, and they're patrolling a lot of the areas. They're becoming a lot more active. I've seen two in the last week that stopped by and talked to me. So just heads up, renew your license, check your license, make sure you're up to date. Uh, so you don't get caught, you without a fishing license. So yeah, just, be aware.
yeah, another those thermocell things you can get from off. They're basically little containers that throw out a scent to repel. I don't know actually know what they do. I think
They
they throw out
work
a scent.
though.
They work,
They do
yeah.
work though. I've used them in some heavy marshes before, where I had two of them set up plus the spray, and I was good. You know,
Yeah,
so those
they
things
work.
do work.
They're amazing. So especially as you get closer to summer, whenever those mosquitoes come out and like you get to your launch spot and you're like, man, it's so dark out here, but it's only dark because it's a cloud of mosquitoes in front of your car. Yeah, get yourself some thermocell. That way you can get those mosquitoes out real quick while you're fishing.
All right, it looks like we're up on our hour. Is there any other accessories you think like we forgot maybe that are important, or kind of like touch the bases on?
We touched the base. We touched the
There's
bases on
one.
a lot of things. Yeah, go ahead.
There's one that a kayak cushion. um, Especially if you're fishing for hours and hours, and your seat's going to hurt your back. A good kayak cushion will help your back out. So I got back issues, and a good kayak cushion always helps me out. So yeah, that's the
Yeah,
one
that's a good
guy.
one.
Yeah.
We do have one more question. It's like what item would you not recommend? That's a good question right there.
Oh no, I didn't. I guess it's not popping up on mine. So what item would you not recommend? Um, a GoPro holder. No, I'm just kidding. Don't tell anybody your spots. No. Um, Man, I don't. Man, I mean, I'm not the old school rod holders. I feel like they're just. I don't use those anymore. But I wouldn't say to not use one of those. I got a cell phone holder. That one I use. That one. So I that's a really good question. Which accessories? I feel like too much, right? Like if you got too much rod holders or you have too much accessories, that could be an issue, especially if you're a very active fisherman and you like you. What I mean is you're like constantly throwing lures. Like so, I mean, if you're one of those people that post up, throw your bait out there and just relax, maybe all those accessories, you know a grill holder, a cup holder, all that other jazz. That'll be cool. But for somebody that's like throwing artificials, catching a lot of fish, and you just got a lot of things going on, the less stuff you have, obstacles you have in front of you. So too much accessories could be an issue. I don't use the screw-on track mount rod holders, right? I just don't. For me, I don't use those. For me, that's something I don't use. Um, um, I don't use a. Um, there's a lot of things I don't use. There's a lot of accessories out there. Too much accessories, I guess, would be my answers.
I think
How
I
about
think it's a loaded question, but mainly it's the reason why it's because what works for us may not work for you. So if it works for you, it's a good product. If it doesn't work for you, don't use it. Um, I think in Austin he put a comment at the anchor system that runs your anchor to the back of your kayak. The anchor trolley, I think that's a good one. The anchor wizard, that may be a little overkill just because I don't like anchors, but I can conceivably see areas of the coast where or areas you're fishing at where you want an actual anchor, and that may be useful. I don't know. I haven't used it before because I don't need to use it. Um, and I think yeah, just the whole KISS method, keep it simple, stupid, um, and go with what you like and what works for you, and that I think that's the best policy anyway. So
yeah, don't bring your whole tackle box with you, all your tackle with you. You're sitting there shuffling through all this tackle. Think ahead of your trip and what you need and what you don't need.
yeah,
Too much tackle, I feel like used to be an issue I used to have is I'd bring way too much tackle with me, and like three-quarters of it I never even touched. Now I'm going on the water with this little small bag of things that I know fish that I'm targeting and the baits that I use to target those fish. Uh, so yeah, definitely a small bag for me is what I use, not too much tackle. That I would a bass fisherman probably would argue that, right? Because that's his style that he fishes. He probably needs all those baits to switch up to see what works. So really, it's a loaded question. It's your style of fishing, what you do, and how you do it. As for me, I'm gonna go ahead and say too much. For me, is
yeah.
bad.
So yeah, we're running up on our time here, but I wanted to thank y'all guys for joining us and listening to One Last Cast podcast. Thanks again, Merrill, for hopping on. I love the background behind you. That's awesome. I need to get myself one as well.
Yeah, blocking
Yeah,
most of
yeah.
it.
No. Hey, that speckled trout is aggressive and fine looking. So, um,
I think it's pretty good. Maybe a little bit more purple on the back, right? We need some purple right
need
here.
some purple.
Yeah, just some purple. I love a good purple back
Yeah,
trout. That just really
maybe
gets me
next
going.
time. But yeah, you did mention that this is our 50th episode, and this is our 50th episode. I do want to say that for those of you who are listening right now on the chat, right after this, I'm going to draw a name to win a prize pack for our 50th episode, which will include a sticker, some knocking tail lures, and a towel. And also for those of you who are listening on podcast after this episode's aired, um, let's run another drawing at the end of the month, end of March. So feel free to comment on this video until the end of March, and we'll just whatever, and we'll do a drawing at the end of the month, and so that all of y'all can also get a chance at winning some stuff from us. But those of you who already commented, you kind of get a double chance. So
Yeah,
thanks for
good.
joining us
Or
live.
also try to share our this so other people can have an opportunity to get a shot at it too.
Yep.
Or
Yep.
maybe
So
not, right? So I don't know, right? If you want to
no,
win,
we want you to share.
yeah,
We
okay,
want
all
you to
right,
share.
cool. All right, guys.
Yep. But thanks again. Do want to give another shout out to our sponsors before we hop off. Knock and Tell Lures. If you're looking for those lures that we're talking about and you just can't wait to get them, go to knockandtelllures.com and you can find them. They rattle, has rattle built into the tail, so it rattles on when it swims down. Awesome soft plastic, and it's been great to us. Also, Dirty South Kayak Anglers. If you're looking for a place to talk fishing and kayaking on Facebook, just look up Dirty South Kayak Anglers, DSKA, and you'll find a good group of men and women there to talk fishing and kayaking with. There also, 4A Printing, they do our custom stuff, our towels and buffs. Talk to Aaron, he'll get you hooked up. Sorry, I am dealing with all sorts of stuff here, but if you're looking for real estate here in the Houston area, talk to Merrill's lovely wife, Brittany Solesky. You can reach her at 281-740-0498. Looking for residential or commercial, she'll find what you're looking for. You can also reach her at Brittany, that's BRITNEY at grindstonereg.com. All right. Thanks again for listening. This is the One Last Cast podcast. You all guys have a great one and have a good rest of your day.
Take care, guys.